What is a basic survival tactic/rule/lesson that everyone should know? Yes, one of my best friends was T-boned by one of those nightmare logger trucks from Final Destination. She thought quickly when she realized what was going to happen and just went limp, came out of it 100% okay, just some minor whiplash. Stay still after a car wreck unless there's fire. Moving around can worsen any potential spinal injuries. No matter what condition your car is in, if there's any chance of a spinal injury, the fire brigade will still take the roof off and the paramedics extricate you in various braces to prevent movement. Hey, former EMT here. Yes, and please allow emergency responders to examine you and treat you on the scene, if they deem it necessary. Shock is a hell of a thing, and in the immediate aftermath of an accident, you might feel the urge to leave the scene or resist help if you do not have an obvious injury. Remember that we're trained to assess for signs of head and spinal problems, internal bleeding, and other serious injuries that you might not be able to perceive on your own, and we're there to help you. Also, if you crash into a power line pole and it falls to the ground, stay inside your car. If you see a car crashing into one, do not help. The distance between your feet as you walk toward, away from the car can be enough to induce current. If it does, you will die. If you find yourself in that situation and need to exit the car, fire, for example, hop away by keeping your feet together. Do not fall. Call emergency services and let them know a power line fell to the ground. I heard this story where a guy, let's name him A, who was training someone else, guy B, for something medical, think paramedic. Anyways, they got a call that someone had been stabbed in a bar. They went to the bar and saw a girl who was stabbed. B removed the knife and they asked him what the hell was he doing. B panicked and ... You guessed it, stabbed the girl, causing the girl to die. B went to jail. The amount of tourists in Australia who end up leaving their cars and wandering is horrific. Generally the car is found a day or two later. If you're going on a long drive, tell someone, and tell them you'll check in with them on arrival, or along the way, but the occupants might not be found for months. If it's hot, push the car off the road. Wait a while for the effect of the car's shadow to cool the ground underneath the vehicle, then get under it. Went tubing with a friend a couple of weeks ago who was pretty aggressive driving the boat and actively trying to knock me off the tube. Eventually I went flying and hit the water hard. Had the wind knocked out of me and was disoriented and suddenly exhausted long enough that if I hadn't been wearing a life jacket, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have had the strength to stay above water on my own. I even lost my voice for a bit. Needless to say, I was done tubing for the day. Lol. Also, stop using your legs to hold you up, bend your knees or go completely limp. It's not intuitive, but try this. Grab a friend, with consent to the experiment, and pull them backwards. They will use their legs and most likely will actually walk themselves backwards because it's natural to do that. If you feel you are going to fall backwards. This makes it quite easy for you to pull them with you. Then try again and tell them to go entirely limp, or let their legs go rubber. Now your victim is not helping you, you have to support more of their weight. Meanwhile, hopefully your victim is using their arms and hands to poke your eyes out. Not as easy as when the victim is standing, so go limp. My dad repeatedly told me this growing up and still does. If they're threatening you with a weapon, call their bluff and fight like hell to keep from getting in the vehicle. Whatever is going to happen to you right then and there is not near as bad as what is going to happen should you make it into the vehicle and be taken to another location. Have some sort of fire. Fire is the #1 survival rule. You can cook food, boil water, keep you warm, keep away predators. Fire. It's the biggest morale booster in a survival situation. I was on a 3-day backpacking trip and I had 2 lighters fail on me in a snowstorm. From now on I always buy a brand new lighter and keep some matches with me. I don't mess around when it comes to fire. If you are going hiking, pack extra water and drink it. As simple as that. Dehydration can quickly lead to disorientation, and I forget the exact facts, but a good percentage of hikers that get lost report having a headache before they lost their way. And headaches are one of the first signs of dehydration. Drink your water, please, people. Also, read a map before you go. GPS is great, but it makes people not care where they are and they have no real big picture of where they are going. Read a map, bring a compass and a whistle too. With that big picture in your head, you'll know generally if you get lost, which direction you should head to get back to safety. A whistle carries further than you're trying to scream and requires less effort. Both fit in your pocket easily. And yes, bring water and toss a few snack bars in your pack. I always carried Snickers bars before I had kids who are allergic to peanuts. Bring a jacket too, even if it's hot. This is a great one because even experienced hikers and outdoors folks forget it or get too comfy. Don't mess around with hydration. If it crosses your mind, drink. If you get thirsty enough, you'll start telling yourself you don't need it. Drink anyway. Anything that reminds you that you have water, drink then. Along with a 3 right turns advice, I've been told that if you think you're being followed, put your turn signal on and see if the person behind you also does this. If they do, skip the next turn and just go straight. If they turn, you're probably in the clear. If they don't, you're most likely being followed. Call the police immediately and do not under any circumstances drive home. Unless the guy following you is just going home and you just happen to turn down the right streets. I was going home just the other night and I really think this happened. Guy in front of me had out-of-state license plates and it just so happened every time he made a turn, it was where I was going. We went into a subdivision, then he turned into a place with a cul-de-sac so he could turn around. I literally had to sit there while he turned around so I could park at my house. I once had a pretty stubborn creep following me one time. The dude wasn't even trying to not be sketchy. Black Charger, no tags, kept headlights off. I did the right turns and even passed through some really public places. Police department wasn't an option. There's no cops at night on weekdays and none at all day or night on weekends. So as a last-ditch effort I called my friends while briefly at a stop sign and told them to meet me at a really busy 24/7 gas station and let me know when they get there. My friends are roommates so they live in the same house. The creep finally left once he saw 2 big dudes come greet my car. I wasn't going to get out unless I was sure the follower left. My friends played it pretty cool, acting like they were wondering where I was at and mentioning a fake aunt. Never let someone take you to a second location. The chances that they would actually shoot you in the parking lot of the Piggly Wiggly, where witnesses are present, are small, but better to be shot there than in some godforsaken field 30 miles out of town. You will be found quickly and there will be cameras and witnesses to gather evidence. If someone wants to remove you from a public location, it's because they want to do something to you that will cause you harm and send them to prison. Experts in kidnapping say never be coerced onto a vehicle. Literally do anything to avoid it, or you don't get a choice about going to that second location. They even said don't get in if someone is pointing a gun at you. Just run. Most kidnappers don't want to hang around and chase you down or shoot at you. That wasn't their goal. Even if they did shoot while you're running, they are nervous and it's harder than you think to hit someone on the move. Any move to fight/escape/run/evade has risk, but the worst risk of all, statistically, is complying and letting yourself be forced into a vehicle. I went and visited a small town in Montana and was talking to a waitress. She mentioned how one of her friends was mauled by a bear but survived. Her friend survived because he remembered something his grandma had told him when he was little about animals and gag reflexes while being mauled. This man shoved his fist down the bear's throat, caused it to gag and run away. I don't know why, but I tend to think a lot about this story from time to time. It's so fascinating and I hope I will never be in a position where I have to throw my fist down a predator's throat. If you are in the wilderness and need to sleep, do not sleep on the bare ground. You'll quickly become hypothermic. There's a reason bedrolls, sleeping bags, and hammocks were invented. If you have no camping bed, you can pile up leaves and brush, like a proper mattress stick pile. and lay in it to create an air pocket buffer between you and the ground. This is arguably more important than being able to build overhead shelter or even being able to start a fire. If you find yourself in an unfamiliar part of a city while alone at night, or really any time when it seems like sketchy things might be going down, walk and move with the purpose. Eyes ahead, confident strides, like you've been to that barred window corner store up ahead 1,000 times in the past. Anyone looking for an easy mark will key in on insecurity in a heartbeat. I once went duck hunting alone and didn't tell anyone. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I broke through the matted weeds on top of the water and sunk into thick muck up to my thighs. I was completely immobile from the waist down and the water level was just under the top of my waders, making any movement dangerous. My only plan was to wait until dark and start firing my shotgun in groups of 3 bursts and hope someone recognized it as a distress signal. I was eventually able to get the bag of decoys off my back and laid across it and gradually work my legs free and escape. Since then I have never gone anywhere in the bush alone without telling someone exactly where I am going and when I plan to return. I went and visited a small town in Montana and was talking to a waitress. She mentioned how one of her friends was mauled by a bear but survived. Her friend survived because he remembered something his grandma had told him when he was little about animals and gag reflexes while being mauled. This man shoved his fist down the bear's throat, caused it to gag and run away. I don't know why, but I tend to think a lot about this story from time to time. It's so fascinating and I hope I will never be in a position where I have to throw my fist down a predator's throat. Tourniquets. If someone's bleeding profusely from their arms or legs or hands etc., get a belt or a rope or something you can use to tie that appendage off with. Tie it off above the wound and tie it as tight as you can. It should hurt but they'll be thankful when they're not dead. You can't tourniquet above the shoulders and you can't tourniquet the abdomen. If it's a neck or abdomen wound, apply pressure until help arrives. Former lifeguard here that's had to pull far too many from riptides. Another thing you can do is float. Just float on your back. Let it take you out as far as it will. Worst case a few hundred feet, and backstroke parallel to the shore for a bit and then back towards shore. Me and some of the guards were having a night outing by a hotel one night and one of them noticed that we were being dragged out fast and knew it was a riptide. We just waited a bit, backstroked sideways, and then back to shore. We were a bit tired, but not as bad. I'm late to the party but the easiest way to stay safe is to be aware. Take the time to learn body language and signs of aggression, and look for them. Take the time to observe and consciously plan on ways to escape a room. Make a conscious effort to stay aware of your surroundings, the people around you, the weather, and other conditions. It takes a few weeks to train your brain to recognize these things and then you will do it naturally. So many problems become non-existent if you're aware of them before they pop off. Moving water is super duper fucking deadly. A fast moving river can suck you below the surface and you'll drown without a trace. Even a small stream only a foot or so deep can easily sweep you off your feet and slam you into a rock. And sometimes water looks completely still but has strong currents under the surface. Out at the sea, these can carry you far away from the shore. And no, you can't outswim it. Humans are fucking shit at swimming and we tire in minutes if you're trying hard. Although it may seem extremely useful at times, making any kind of fire isn't always the best option. If we humans feel attracted by light and warmth, so do wild animals. Remember also that it could spread, so it's not good to just leave it unwatched. Lastly, although not as likely you could burn yourself, even if it's a very small wound it would prove annoying at best, which could hinder your attention to many other things that may be worth noticing. My one and only East St. Louis experience, driving with my younger brother eastbound. Get into the vicinity at around 2 in the morning and gas is alarmingly low. Not knowing anything about the area, we pull off to fill up, maybe relieve our Mountain Dew bloated bladders. As I am filling up I get an unsettled feeling. My biz wondering why he can't find a restroom as a police officer pulls up and asks what the hell the two of us are doing here. While I felt it was quite obvious, Maybe my frantic search looks a bit sketchy. I was about to explain the situation when the po tells me we may be the two dumbest white boys in the world being here at this time with money and a relatively nice car. I was about to correct him regarding his incorrect assessment of our mixed genetic heritage when he asks me, that he is waiting until we fill up and then he'll follow us to make sure we get back on the highway. Okay, I was like okay, thanks. Once we get on our way safely, the po turns around and heads back. Never been through that area again. I still wonder how my bladder held out until the next pit stop. Similar scenario, East St. Louis, road trip. About midnight, I have to pee and hubby is procrastinating getting off on an exit to the next one. Finally it's so bad I'm almost in tears. We are going west. He exits and there are 0 gas stations, dilapidated houses, streets unkempt with lights that don't work, etc. He sees a big brick building with some lights on and people walking around and pulls up to it. We are debating its safety, and all of my alarm bells are going off, so I tell him that I will pee on the floorboard before I get out of our van. Just then, a well-dressed man knocks on our window and hubby rolls it down. We are getting glances and are being pointed at by everyone around our vehicle. Mind you, the man says, "I'm a U.S. Marshal. What the hell are you guys doing here?" He then tells us to follow him to a good exit, and says to never stop in this area again. Forgot to say we had 2 kids under 8. I was so grateful this guy was there. Edit spelling. How to recognize a dangerous situation. Also, if you think that you are in a dangerous situation, leave before it gets worse. Or if you can't do that, do what you can to better your odds and leave the instant that you can. Just this week I was out on a backpacking trip and got soaking wet. 100% my fault and I take full responsibility for it. And the temperature was something like 50 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping. The rain wasn't letting up and I realized that it could drop to below freezing easily that night and I would likely still be soaked. I could have easily ended up with hypothermia or worse, so I hiked some 6 miles back to my car and drove home to backpack another day. If someone is about to attack you, the most powerful weapon you have is your voice. If they try to hurt you, just scream as loud as you can. You will stun them, and with those 2 seconds you have, you run in the opposite direction. It isn't like the movies where you can suddenly defeat your opponent with martial arts. Even martial artists say the most important thing to do is run away. Your attacker had the element of surprise and has the advantage. Don't be a hero. Important note: do not follow rivers downstream in extremely arid climates. A lot of rivers in extremely arid climates do not flow into any other body of water and instead just dry out in the middle of nowhere. However, most rivers in these climates flow out from water sources, like melting snowcaps near mountains. Following the river upstream has a higher chance of you running into civilization, since that's where people usually settle in arid climates. Finding a body of water in a desert, though, that's its own can of worms. If you're lost in the woods, set one course and follow it. If you find flowing water, follow it because it is likely to lead to some sort of settlement. If you don't have a compass, either look for where the sun is rising and setting, east and west, the pole stars, or find an anthill. Ants generally build their hills where it is sunniest, south or north depending on where you are on Earth. Also, if you must drink water in nature, it is better to drink from moving water rather than still water. Don't know how widespread this one is, but if you get lost in the wilderness, stay where you are. Unless your life is in danger in the area, chances are you will only get more lost, and moving decreases the speed at which the rescue party will find you. If you can light a fire safely, this also increases the odds by a fat margin, as a column of smoke is visible from a very long distance. Also worth noting that you should prioritize shelter and warmth over anything else. You can survive roughly 3 to 5 days without water, roughly 2 weeks without food. A chilly night can kill you.